The opening scene of No One Lives in Hollowtown sets the stage for a creeping, atmospheric horror story, one that relies on unsettling silence and the slow unraveling of a mystery rather than immediate shocks. The protagonist, an unnamed traveler, arrives in Hollowtown expecting the ordinary rhythms of a small, rural community, perhaps a gas station, a diner, a few locals going about their day. Instead, he is met with an eerie stillness. The town is not just quiet, it is abandoned in a way that feels unnatural. Cars sit parked along the streets, some with doors left ajar as if their drivers stepped out and never returned. Storefronts are intact, but no faces peer through the windows. A diner's neon sign buzzes faintly, flickering in the daylight. Yet inside, plates of half-eaten food remain on tables, coffee cups still warm to the touch. It's as though life was frozen in an instant, leaving behind only the ghost of routine. The protagonist's growing unease is palpable. He calls out, expecting or perhaps dreading a response, but only his own voice echoes back. The wind stirs a newspaper along the pavement, but there are no footsteps, no distant chatter, not even the hum of electricity. The emptiness is too complete, violating the natural order of things. A town doesn't just empty without reason. People don't vanish without leaving behind traces of panic or struggle. Yet here, it seems they did. This scene works as psychological horror, preying on the fear of isolation and the unknown. The absence of people is more disturbing than any grotesque sight could be, because the mind races to fill in the gaps. Where did they go? Why is everything still in place? The normality of the surroundings, the untouched meals, the idling cars, makes the situation even more wrong, like a stage set after the actors have disappeared. By the time the protagonist steps further into town, the reader already senses that something terrible has happened. The horror hasn't yet taken shape, but the dread is thick in the air. The scene's power lies in what it doesn't show, leaving the imagination to conjure possibilities far worse than any explicit reveal. This is the hallmark of slow burn horror, the fear of what comes next, lurking just beyond sight. The moment the protagonist steps deeper into Hollowtown, the eerie quiet transforms into something far more unsettling, an active, almost voyeuristic exploration of absence. This isn't a ghost town in the traditional sense, weathered by time and decay. Instead, it's a place frozen in a single, inexplicable moment, as though every living soul simply stopped mid-breath. He moves cautiously, his footsteps too loud against the pavement, each sound an intrusion in the unnatural silence. The diner draws him first. The door swings open with a creak, revealing a scene of interrupted normalcy. Plates of food sit half-finished, a fork balanced on the edge of a dish, as if someone had just set it down. Coffee steams faintly in a mug, still warm, though no one is there to drink it. A newspaper lies open on the counter, the headlines mundane, dated to the present. It's not a town abandoned, it's a town paused. Outside, the streets offer no more answers. Cars sit idling at intersections, radios murmuring static, keys dangling in ignitions. A child's bicycle is sprawled on the sidewalk, its front wheel still spinning lazily, as though its rider had just leapt off. The air carries no scent of rot, no signs of struggle, just the faint metallic tang of something indefinable, something wrong. He calls out again, his voice swallowed by the emptiness. No echo answers, no distant shuffle of movement. The deeper he goes, the more oppressive the silence becomes. It's not just that no one is here, it's that the absence feels intentional, as if the town itself is holding its breath, waiting for him to see what it's hiding. Windows reflect only his own face back at him, distorted in the glass. Doors stand ajar, inviting and ominous. The ordinary details, a jacket slung over a chair, a lit cigarette burning to ash in an ashtray, become grotesque in their mundanity. This isn't abandonment. It's erasure. And then, the first sign of something truly unnatural. A faint, wet sound. A shifting in the walls. The protagonist freezes. The town isn't empty. It's alive. This scene thrives on the slow burn of discovery, each mundane detail layering unease until the horror reveals itself, not in jumps, but in creeping realization. The town isn't just deserted, it's wrong, and the deeper he looks, the more he begins to understand that he was never meant to find it at all. The dread that has been simmering beneath Hollowtown's unnatural silence finally begins to boil over as the protagonist encounters the first physical evidence that something is deeply, irrevocably wrong. Up until now, the horror has been one of absence, a town frozen in time, its people vanished without explanation. But here, in the dim back rooms and shadowed corners of Hollowtown, the horror takes on a tangible, grotesque form. It starts with something small, a discoloration on the wall, a patch of dampness that shouldn't be there. At first, the protagonist mistakes it for rot or mildew, but the texture is wrong. It's too smooth, too organic. When he reaches out to touch it, the surface yields slightly under his fingers, warm and spongy, like living tissue. He recoils, wiping his hand on his shirt, as if the very contact has contaminated him. Then he notices more of them, bulbous growths clinging to the undersides of tables, pulsing faintly as though breathing. They glisten under the flickering fluorescent lights, their surfaces veined with thin, dark capillaries. Some are small, no larger than a fist, while others have begun to merge, forming grotesque, misshapen masses that seem to throb in time with some unseen heartbeat. The air grows thick with a coppery, organic stench, like blood and spoiled meat. A sound cuts through the silence, a wet, squelching noise, as if something heavy is shifting just out of sight. The protagonist's breath catches in his throat. The walls themselves seem to move, the growths twitching in response to his presence. He stumbles back, knocking over a chair, and that's when he sees it. A human hand, half merged into one of the larger masses, fingers curled as if in mid-gesture. The skin is pale, waxy, blending seamlessly into the fleshy growth around it. This is no longer a mystery of disappearance. This is a transformation. The people of Hollowtown didn't leave. They were absorbed, consumed by whatever this entity is. And it's still growing. The horror here is visceral, a plunge from eerie stillness into outright body horror. The scene plays on the fear of the human body being violated, rewritten into something unrecognizable. The protagonist's revulsion is palpable, his mind scrambling to reconcile what he's seeing with any kind of rational explanation. But there is none. This is something beyond understanding, something that defies the natural order. And worst of all, it's aware of him. The horror of Hollowtown ceases to be a mystery and becomes an abomination in this scene. The moment when the protagonist finally understands what happened to the missing townspeople and why the silence was so suffocating. Up until now, he has clung to the desperate hope that there might be some rational explanation, some way to make sense of the impossible. But here, in the dim, pulsating heart of the town, all illusions are stripped away. He follows the trail of fleshy growths, their presence thickening like a spreading infection, leading him deeper into a building. Perhaps the old town hall or a church, a place where people might have gathered as the horror first took hold. The walls are no longer just walls. They are fused with something alive, a grotesque amalgamation of human flesh and something far worse. The air is humid with the heat of living tissue, the scent of blood, and something sweetly putrid clinging to the back of his throat. And then he sees them. Not bodies, not in any recognizable sense. They are part of the mass now, their faces and limbs half submerged in the undulating flesh, their mouths open in silent screams. Some are still partially intact, an eye staring blankly from the wall, a hand twitching as if trying to pull free. Others have melted beyond recognition, their features smoothed into the nightmare collage of the whole. The horror isn't just that they're dead, it's that they're trapped, absorbed into something that has rewritten their very being. A choked sound escapes him, half gasp, half retch. One of the faces, a woman's, her expression frozen in terror, seems to turn toward him, the lips parting as if to speak. But no sound comes. Instead, the entire mass shudders, a ripple passing through it like a muscle contracting. The thing is aware, hungry. This is the revelation that shatters any hope of escape or survival. Hollowtown wasn't abandoned. Its people were taken, consumed by whatever this entity is. And it's not done yet. The scene's power lies in its grotesque intimacy. This isn't a distant, abstract horror. It's the violation of the human form itself, the erasure of individuality in the most visceral way possible. The protagonist's horror is ours, the dawning realization that this fate could still be his. The air in Hollowtown changes. What was once a silent, oppressive emptiness now thrums with a terrible vitality, a low, wet sound, like 100 hearts beating out of sync. The fleshy growths coating the walls begin to tremble, their surfaces glistening as capillaries pulse with dark, viscous fluid. The protagonist stumbles back, his boots sticking to the floor where the substance has begun to spread like spilled syrup. He realizes, with dawning horror, that the town was never empty. It was waiting. A deep, shuddering breath echoes through the building, except it isn't a building anymore. It's a throat. The walls contract slightly, the growths peeling back to reveal deeper layers of fused tissue, strands of sinew stretching like cobwebs. Something is moving in the mass, a disturbance beneath its surface, as if the absorbed townspeople are struggling beneath a suffocating membrane. A hand, pale and slick, pushes outward, fingers flexing in a grotesque parody of reaching for help. Then another, and another. Dozens of limbs press against the inside of the flesh, their shapes distorting as the entity resists their escape. The protagonist's breath comes in ragged gasps. The thing isn't just alive, it's aware of him. The faces embedded in its mass turn in unison, their hollow eyes locking onto his. Mouths stretch open, not to scream, but to emit a sound like a wet, rattling sigh, a chorus of voices that aren't quite voices anymore. They're calling to him, inviting him. A tendril of flesh unspools from the ceiling, dripping with thick fluid. It twitches, then lashes out like a whip, wrapping around his wrist. The heat of it is unbearable, the grip tightening with terrifying strength. He yanks back, but the thing holds fast, his skin burning where it touches. The pain is secondary to the realization. It's not trying to kill him. It's trying to pull him in. This is the moment the horror shifts from observation to visceral, desperate survival. The entity isn't a passive horror. It's predatory, insidious. The protagonist isn't just a witness. He's prey. And Hollowtown isn't a graveyard. It's a feeding ground. Panic ignites in the protagonist's veins as the thing that was once Hollowtown tightens its grip. The tendril around his wrist pulses like a living rope, searing his flesh where it touches. He screams, not just from pain, but from the horrifying intimacy of the contact. The way the entity seems to know him, as if it's already tracing the shape of his bones beneath his skin. With a desperate yank, he tears free, leaving behind a strip of flesh and a splatter of his own blood that the mass absorbs greedily. He runs. The town, once eerily still, now twists around him. Doorways he passed through moments earlier seem to contract like muscle tissue. The streets undulate as if breathing beneath his feet. The air is thick with the stench of open wounds and something sweetly rotten clinging to the back of his throat. Behind him, wet, slithering sounds multiply. The entity is giving chase, not in a single form, but as the very environment itself. Walls bulge outward, windows weep strands of mucus-like filaments, and the pavement splits open in places, revealing glistening pits of fused teeth and grasping fingers. His car is still where he left it, but the keys? Where are the keys? He pats his pockets frantically, his breath coming in sobbing gasps. The shadows around him deepen, the light dying as the sky itself seems to darken, though it's barely past noon. A child's laughter rings out, high, distorted, but there are no children here. There haven't been for a long time. The engine roars to life. He doesn't remember turning the key. The rearview mirror shows the town receding, but it also shows something else. His own reflection, blurred at the edges. His skin is too pale. His eyes are too dark. And there, just below his collar, a patch of raised, mottled flesh, pulsing faintly in time with his heartbeat. He floors the accelerator. The itching starts before he reaches the county line. This scene is a symphony of mounting dread, where every sensory detail, the sounds, the smells, the way the light bends wrong, serves to isolate the protagonist even as he flees. The true horror isn't just the pursuit, it's the creeping realization that escape might be an illusion. The entity doesn't just consume bodies, it rewrites them, and by the time he notices the changes in himself, it's already too late. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.